Feedback is one of the most important tools that you can provide for your team. And receiving feedback is just as vital. That's why in this video here today, we're going to talk about how to receive feedback as a leader. I just put out a video on how to give feedback. And if you're interested in learning my test loop on how to give feedback, then just check out that video here. In fact, that's part 1 to all of this, so check that out first if you haven't yet. Today, we're gonna jump into my growth feedback framework on how to receive feedback. You see, so many of us, we know how to give feedback. We know how to tell people, here's what you need to do to improve. But so often we forget that we don't know how to receive feedback. And when we do receive it, sometimes we get defensive. Sometimes we get our feelings hurt. And so that's why it's so important that we learn how to receive feedback. I'm going to jump right into our growth feedback framework right now for all of you so that you could really learn how to receive feedback, take it, and grow from it. I remember when I was new to Toastmasters and would receive feedback, I wasn't really sure on how to receive it. And a lot of times I'd try to explain myself and share, here's my reasoning behind why I did what I did. What I learned from that is I actually didn't learn much, because rather than receiving the feedback and applying what worked well for me or what I really liked from the feedback or what resonated with me, I didn't get anything from the feedback because I was stuck in my position. And that's why I just really feel that by providing a framework for you on how to receive feedback is going to help you grow. I know that once I decided to move into this mindset where I want to grow, I want to develop, and I want to learn, when I moved into that mindset, now feedback landed with me in a way where I could improve. So by embracing it this way, I started improving. And what I want to share with you about feedback is that not all feedback is good feedback. And so, trust your leadership instincts. Trust yourself and your instincts as to what feedback is good feedback for you that you can apply and what feedback is maybe not feedback for you to apply. That's why it's really important that the person who's providing feedback is credible. So you might be receiving feedback from a leader, but they might not have knowledge of your industry or the space that you're looking for feedback in. So make sure that when you are seeking someone to give you feedback, that they're a credible source in the space that you want to receive feedback in. This is really vital to your growth and to your success as a leader. Let's jump into the first letter in our framework, which is G in our growth framework. The G is for gather and clarify. You want to gather as much information as you can about what you did well or what you can improve on, and you want to clarify, what does it actually mean? And what are you actually looking for? See, the first part of this whole thing is that you're seeking to understand. This removes your defenses. Bring your defenses down. You're not admitting that you're wrong. You're not admitting or saying that you're doing something wrong or that you're not knowledgeable on something. You're simply trying to gather information from the person who's providing feedback, and you're trying to clarify it so that you can apply the feedback where necessary. The key part to this whole thing is that you are seeking to understand. You really want to understand what is it that they're sharing with you. So you want to get as much information from them as possible. You want to clarify that information, and then you want to apply that information. And that is the very first part of this framework. The R is for regulate your responses. Let's be honest, receiving feedback isn't easy. I mean, when you're getting all the acknowledgement for being great and all, it's not that hard. But the truth is that feedback is to help you improve. So we're really acknowledging your weaknesses, acknowledging maybe where you fell short, and acknowledging parts that you might be embarrassed about. And so that triggers a lot of emotions within you when you're receiving this feedback. And you might be feeling it in your gut and in your chest, and you might be feeling anxious or upset or hurt or, like I said, embarrassed. And that's why it's so important to regulate your response. Because you have to keep in mind that the person providing you the feedback is not there to judge you. They're not there to tear you down, and they're not there to hurt your feelings. That all might be happening. I want to acknowledge that. But that's not the purpose of feedback. And that's why I always talk about channeling your breath and taking that deep breath in to regulate your emotions so that you can regulate your response. And it could simply be, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate that. See, we just went through gather and clarify, and that could be used right here where you can say, I really appreciate that feedback that you gave me. Could you please clarify how you meant it? I understand the feedback that you're giving me. Could you give me more information as to what you would like to see from me? When you're able to regulate your emotions and regulate your response, then you're able to clearly receive the feedback and apply and move on. Regulating our emotions is one of the key pillars to leadership. And it's one of the pieces in this framework that's going to help you grow as a leader. The O in our growth feedback framework is owning your part. You see, you've performed. You did the slide deck, and you've performed in front of your group or your team, and now you're there, vulnerable, waiting to receive feedback. And when you do receive that feedback, you have to own your part. You might receive feedback on your slide deck of maybe the slides went too fast, or the slides were too busy. Maybe you spoke too fast, or maybe your stage presence was lackluster. Own your part in all of that. Was there a slide that you could have improved? Could you have improved your stage presence? Could you have made more eye contact? In owning your part, you're being honest to yourself. You're receiving the feedback through this lens of they saw something that actually might be true. It's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in, but in owning your part, you're being honest to yourself. You're acknowledging your weaknesses and recognizing that there is room for growth. And so now it allows you to take that feedback and actually apply it and grow from it. I love this part of owning your part. It's something that I use at home all the time with my family. My wife and kids, whenever we get into a debate or an argument on something, I always say own your part to them. And the reason why is because it removes the friction. If you just own it, it's over, right? They gave you feedback, you may have liked it or didn't like it, but if you own it, because more than likely you know it's true, and you just own it, well then it's over. You've received the information, you've acknowledged the information, and now you can learn from it and grow from it. Owning your part, like I said, it's a vulnerable position to be in. But when we just go back one step and we go into regulating our emotions and regulating our responses, it makes it to where it's a little easier to do. Hey, real quick, if this video is giving you value, then make sure to check out part 1 right over here. In part 1, I go through my framework on how to give feedback. Also, what I've provided for you is a free PDF that you can just click on and download in order to help you. It's a communication guide. So as a leader, communication is the foundation to almost everything you do. And this guide is going to help you with that. So make sure to do all of that. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe this video so you can get more videos and more content like this to help you grow as a leader. Let's jump back into the framework. The W in our framework is for widen your perspective. Oh man, if we could just see things through the other side of the lens. I mean, no, really, like if you just look at the other side of the lens, there's a whole other person there, seeing things totally different than the way that I'm seeing them right now. And that's so true with giving and receiving feedback. When you're receiving feedback, if you could widen your perspective, and see things through the eyes of the person who's giving you the feedback. What do they see? What are they looking for? What is their perspective on things? Where are they coming from with this information? When you start asking yourself these kinds of questions, that's again where your defenses are going to go down, where your guard is going to go down, and you're going to be in that learning and that understanding kind of mentality, what we like to call the growth mentality, the growth mindset. When we change our perspective and we widen it and we look at it through another lens, that's where the growth really happens. You see, we're so caught up in our own lens, our own story, and we tell ourselves our own story over and over and over again, which is why we repeat the same things over and over again. What feedback provides us is a different perspective. It provides us a different story. When receiving feedback through somebody else's story, you can ask yourself, what if they're right? What if what they're sharing with me is something that's going to help me and enhance what I have to do? When you're able to think of it that way, you can then apply it and you can become more successful in what you're trying to accomplish. The T is to thank them and to think. This is a double T for all of you here, and it's because you want to show your appreciation to the person giving you feedback. See, this person took time out of their day to be objective. They took time out of their day to listen to what you have to say. They took time out of their day to help you grow. And the smallest gesture you can give them, the nicest gesture you can give them is simply thank them. So when thanking them, just make sure that you show them some appreciation for taking time out of their day to objectively provide feedback for you. It could be as simple as, hey, thank you for the great feedback that you just provided me. I'm going to work on applying it. When you are thanking them and you're in this grateful mindset, it's also bringing your defenses down. It's allowing you to be in that growth mindset to say, hey, I am grateful that you provided me this feedback, and I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to grow. And that right there is an incredible mind space to be in as you go into thinking about the feedback that you just received. The next part to this is the thinking part to it all. I often talk so much about pausing when speaking so that it can resonate with your audience. And when I talk about this in the public speaking workshops that I do, it's about sharing data points or sharing information and pausing to allow it to resonate, to simmer, to let the audience engage with it in their minds. Well, there's no difference in receiving feedback. You need time to think. You need time to allow the feedback to resonate with you, to think through, how am I going to apply this feedback? What will I do with this feedback? What part of this feedback is helpful to what I'm trying to accomplish? What part of this feedback is maybe not so important to what I'm trying to accomplish? I really like the think part of this framework because this is where feedback goes from someone giving you feedback to you translating into how am I going to apply this feedback. You get to think through what they shared with you and how you're going to apply it next. In this thinking phase, take some time. Take some quiet time, review your notes, review what you previously wrote or what notes you had previously going into this conversation, and review your feedback notes. Put them together. See how they work in conjunction with each other. I said take some time alone to think, but also take some time to go to the person who gave you feedback and to have a conversation with them about that feedback, so that as you're thinking through it, you're not developing your own story in it. You actually are hearing and seeing it from their point of view, from their perspective. So it takes time. Make sure you show some appreciation, some gratitude, and think. Think through it for yourself. H is for hone your next steps. This is where you really get to apply the feedback. In the H, it's where you can actually run the test feedback loop that we talked about in the previous video, in part 1 of this video here. This is where you take all the feedback that you've received and you actually see what are the next steps. How am I going to take this feedback? How I'm going to go through all these different phases that we just talked about and actually apply it and now put it into action. I also think about this as not just honing your next steps, but also honing in on how to do this better. And that is where practice really comes in. I always think about presentations and talks and even conversations, like hard conversations. It might be a hard one-to-one conversation. I always think of them as how did I rehearse going into that? How did I practice that conversation going into that? And so when we receive all of this feedback, and it could be confidential type of feedback, when we receive all of this feedback, this is where we get to hone our next steps and say, okay, this is how I'm going to go into that conversation. This is how I'm going to give that presentation. This is how I'm going to give that talk. And now we have an idea of how we're going to do it, and we can actually start doing it. And we do it. And we can apply that test feedback loop just to ourselves, of setting that target for ourselves, of experimenting with it, and looking for someone to support us through it, and then looking at all of the data for that information that we just put out there. What's great about this part here is that you're growing, you're learning, you're experimenting, you're trying new things, and you're able to see what are the next steps? How could I do better? How could I improve? And I mean, that's really what leadership's all about. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about improving. It's about receiving feedback, applying it, and seeing what the next steps are on how to improve. So that's it. That's the growth framework. Real simple to think about, real simple to take in right here. Sometimes it's a little harder to apply. And that's just because, look, receiving feedback, it's not easy. It's not going to always feel good. And just acknowledge that and accept it and recognize that we've all been there. We've all received feedback that we don't like. I can tell you countless scenarios where I've received feedback I don't like. But that's part of growing. Receive that feedback. You have a framework now on how to be able to take feedback that you may not like, receive it, apply it, and grow from it. That's really what it's all about. I mean, that's what my channel's all about. It's about growing as a leader. That's why when I ask you to subscribe and like videos like this, it's to help you grow. It's to help you become the leader that you see yourself becoming. So make sure to do those two things. And if you haven't quite yet done it yet, just go ahead and download my free PDF on how to communicate as a leader. I put these videos out in order to help you succeed, and I'd love to hear from you. So share with me your win. What's something you got feedback on, applied it, and really felt good about it? Put that in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, stay tuned for a new video, stay happy, and stay healthy. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.